The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hi, my name is Amy Newman, and my husband Bobby and I have a business called Newman Intervention Services. We provide intervention services for families who have loved ones struggling with drug addiction. Our goal is to help individuals get the support and treatment they need to overcome addiction and start on the path to recovery. With our personalized and compassionate approach, we guide families through the challenging process of getting their loved one into rehab and onto a road of a healthier future. Together, we can make a positive difference in the lives of those affected by drugs. If you or someone you know is in need of an intervention, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let's work together and bring hope and healing to those battling addiction.
Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. Hey, thank you for joining me today on the Addiction Podcast. We have a wonderful interview today. We have interviewed Bobby Newman several times, and Bobby and his wife Amy are the founders and co-owners of Newman Interventions and Recovery Services. And today, we're going to get the story from the better half. We're going to talk to Amy Newman. But before, here's a little information about Newman Interventions. So, Amy Newman, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today because we have had your husband on several times, and I always feel it's a good idea to hear from the better half, if you will. So tell us, Amy, because I know you have your own history of addiction. How bad did it get for you? What was the rock bottom for you?
Well, that kind of starts in the middle of towards the end of my usage, but it got really, really, really horrible. I had reverted. I had quit for a little while, and then I had reverted, and I went downhill so fast. And I was hanging out with some people, and I couldn't believe it. They were using every day, and I was just like, "What are you guys doing with your lives?" But then, of course, I'm hanging out with them, and then I start using every day. Before I even know it, I'm using every single day.
Hello, I'm Joni Siegel, the host of the Addiction Podcast. In 2022, over 100,000 people died from drug and alcohol abuse, and that number is growing daily. Fentanyl poisoning, pot, cocaine, heroin, and even psychedelics and alcohol all contribute to this crisis, while we're bombarded with promotions from thousands of rehabs. Newborns are born addicted, and the majority of homeless people struggle with drug addiction. Drug dealers exploit online resources to sell to teens, and antidepressant use is spiraling out of control. This podcast features brutally honest guest interviews revealing harsh realities and offering hope and solutions through their stories. We don't sugarcoat anything. Guests speak raw and real. More importantly, you'll find inspiration to understand, overcome, and achieve recovery, whether for yourself or to help others, some within your own family, many among your friends or associates. Whether you're seeking help or just a glimmer of hope, our podcast equips you with the latest insights to confront this generational battle. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help.
And I just couldn't even figure out how to get out of it myself. I could not. I was trying to do all these different things on how I quit the last time, and none of it was working. I was just so miserable and so unhappy, mostly using by myself because I was young and I didn't want to get into trouble. Most of the young guys were, starting to do all kinds of stuff. So I just was trying to get out of it. Couldn't figure it out.
I understand.
Yeah.
And that we hear stories like that, the person who was homeless under the bridge or had lost everything. But how young were you or how old were you when you got started, and what did you get started on?
So when I was about 14, I had started drinking, and the first time I had ever drank anything, I immediately like went and drank way too much and got drunk. And so that was when I was 14. And the next weekend, it was around October. So the next weekend, there was a Halloween party, and I went to that party with a ton of high schoolers. And I smoked pot that time. I got drunk again, and it just really snowballed from there, just like hanging out with people over the weekends and drinking. So my 14s and 15s, I was pretty much, and I guess 16 too, I was drinking quite a bit, smoking pot sometimes. And then when I was 17, my best friend started using methamphetamines. And, I mean, to me, I was like, that's definitely like a really hard drug. But then when my best friend started using it, and she's always like, I always looked at her as like a pretty innocent person, So,
Yep.
and then I was just like, well, this can't be too bad actually if she's using.
Yep.
And then I started using it. And then it was just like every now and then we would use it. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And that's where my journey started, is more like, I just thought we were having so much fun.
Mm. And you were how old then when you started using meth?
17.
17. When did it start to dawn on you that maybe it wasn't so much fun?
So after high school, I that summer I moved out of my family's home and lived with some just roommates. They didn't use drugs as much as I was using drugs. They weren't using methamphetamines. They drank sometimes, maybe smoked some pot. And I just went on a rampage. Like, I had nobody to stop me really, and I didn't even think with how much I was using, because I didn't really have that many obligations except for maybe showing up for work, but I felt like I could do that high. And so I yeah, I didn't even realize, like, how bad it was. And then, somebody had mentioned to someone that they were, like, Amy skinny, and then I was like, "Oh." I didn't even realize how small I had gotten, because I was just, just doing my thing, but I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping very much. And yeah, so I got really, I was like, when I ended up going to rehab, I was under 100 pounds,
Oh
and
my
I'm 5'6".
god. And
Yeah,
how tall are you? Oh, 5'6".
5'6". Yeah,
Wow. A stick
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Okay.
So that year, actually, I had also went to college, and mid the first semester I was failing, and that's when, to me, I was like, okay, I have to stop. And that was the first time when I actually had quit, and I quit on my own. And I finished the rest of the semester, and I was on the honor roll, and I pulled it out, it was going well. So yeah.
And then you said that you had relapse. What caused the relapse?
So I finished that entire year of college, and then in May there was a big graduation party that I had went to, and I got drunk. And I would, like, even though I said I was sober, I was not using methamphetamines, but I still would smoke pot sometimes, and I
Mm,
would still drink. So, but I was sober. Like, that was my reality.
got
And
it.
then basically I was drinking pretty heavily, and there was a circle of people, and we were talking about just different drugs that we have never tried before, and I had never tried ecstasy. So there was someone who gave me an ecstasy pill, and then I was just high all of that night. And then the morning rolled around, and I needed to go to work. And then that was also a time when that morning, like, some people who I had known used meth were showing up at the party. And that was probably like maybe like 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I was like, "Oh, I have to go to work. So how am I gonna get to work, because I didn't sleep?" And then one of the people that I knew used meth. He gave me some methamphetamines. And so I used it, and I went to work. And then I kind of, like, had wondered how some of the people I had stopped talking to were doing. So then I went to a friend's house that used methamphetamines, and then I used the next night, then I used the next night, and it was just like, it snowballed. Because and a lot of the people that I had known who were using methamphetamines, they continued, if they didn't get out of it, they continued, so they were even worse off. And so I went right into that, and before you know it, I mean, it didn't take long at all, and it was really bad, probably like a few months, and I was using every single day.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help. Wow.
Yeah.
And then what got you finally to, what was your point of no return where you really got clean and sober, and how did you do that?
So basically, okay, so I mean, I obviously didn't want that to be my path, right? So it was about 3 months after I had reverted when I was just like looking at my life and well, back up from that. Okay, so I was supposed to in May, I had already planned on moving away to go to this other college with a really good friend of mine. And but I had reverted and then that whole summer I used. So then I had basically spent all the money that I had saved up to move away to go to this college, and I'm using every day. So this is definitely not good. I ended up moving anyway and just trying to figure it out because I wanted to save face basically. I didn't want like everybody to be like, "Oh, she's not making it."
Mm.
Not only did I not make it to college, I'm like using drugs and they don't even know it.
Right.
So I ended up moving away and work I had transferred my work and was working there, but I was driving back a bunch of times to still use drugs and get drugs and I was taking it back. It was a miserable experience.
Mm.
And then there was one night where I used methamphetamines. I had some sort of pain reliever, I think from like a tooth pain or something that a doctor had prescribed to me, and then also Tylenol PM. And I took those. I remember sitting in front of a mirror and I was just taking the Tylenol PM and just feeling so miserable. And that night I had like the worst hallucinations.
Ooh.
It was like all these people came to check on me. It was really weird. And after that night, I called my grandmother and I was just like, I think I need to come home. 'Cause it really scared me. The fact of like, basically it's called speedballing is when you're using the uppers and the lowers at the same time. And so it creates a certain effect.
I got it.
And I just realized, like, I am so bad. I can't stop on my own. I'm very miserable. So then I went back home, and then I went back to college, there, thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna get myself out of this." But it was like everything I kept trying, like, I couldn't figure out how to get to a good place with myself because I
Yeah.
couldn't also stop using drugs. So I'm,
Yeah.
like, trying to climb out, but I'm, like, not. And so I was like, I think so there's one night where just some things blew up with even somebody who I was using with, and I had actually stole some money from him and went back to my dorm room and I was going to just move away. I had like $300. So I was going to move away and just try to figure this out that way. And every time I think about it, I would just start crying. And there was someone who from a rehab center that just indicated to me that like maybe they could help me. And so I went down to the dorm mom that night and I told her a little bit of what was happening. And I asked her for the phone book because at that time we didn't really have the cell phones and all the stuff. So I went and got the phone book and then I went to a convenience store and I called from a payphone and I called the rehab center, and I was just crying. This is the day before my 21st birthday.
Oh,
And
wow.
crying to them like I don't want this to be my life, and I don't want to turn 21 and be this messed up. And so it was just basically I just realized I couldn't do it on my own. I needed to ask for help. And so that's what I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, d did you already know Bobby, or when did you guys meet?
So Bobby and I worked at so basically I didn't meet Bobby until after I had graduated the program. And then he worked in another section where he didn't totally work with very many students, or that's what we called them, the people who were going through the rehab
Was
program.
that Narconon? You did the
Yeah.
Narconon program? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so it was
Okay,
the one in Oklahoma. So
okay.
then he worked in another area, like, kind of on campus, but not in the main building, and then so I met him there when I started working with those guys.
I
So,
got it.
yeah, and
Okay.
then we were friends for 3 years before we ever decided to start dating, so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then now has Bobby we know Bobby is the intervention god, if you will. I mean, he knows everything about that. Was he doing that at the time? Was he doing interventions or mainly just working there at the center?
He worked there at the center, he worked in the success office, and so that
Okay.
basically was working with people who, once they completed the program, just following up with them, making sure they were successful, also helping them with plans, um, on what they were gonna do after the program.
Right. And
Yeah.
when did he get into interventions?
So when we moved to Hawaii, there let's see, I think they might have actually been doing some interventions when we were all on staff. Because, like, if somebody, like, when we were in Oklahoma, they might have been doing them then, but I know
Okay.
for sure we were doing them when we moved to Hawaii and we were doing a drug education program there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And, it's interesting that you mentioned that Bobby was working with people when they were done and having plans and programs for how to stay sober. And you and Bobby, I know I'm kind of fast forwarding here, and but you and Bobby have now come up with kind of a new way to work with people who are sober and need to stay that way. Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, it's with Studio, and they have let us, you guys have kind of helped with this, in allowing us to create an app with them, because there are certain things that you can do to help, or that a person needs whenever they get out of rehab. They just need a support system. Bobby and I had that with working at the rehab center, but not everybody works there and gets that support that they need. So this allows them to get some education, get some understanding, even nutritional information so that they can stay sober. Things that exercises they can do even if they're struggling with cravings.
And I think that that's huge because we've talked to so many people who are in recovery. And, a lot of people have some sort of a plan or system in place to get through it. But I think a lot of people don't. And I think also there are a lot of people who maybe going to a group setting does not appeal to them and is not something they want to do. And maybe they don't exactly know what to do. And, I think that an app such as you guys have created, and it's called Sober Living,
Sober support.
Sober Support. And for people listening, it's not quite available yet, but it will be in the next few days on Apple phone on iPhones at studio.com. But I feel like we're all so much into our tablets or into our phones, and I think if we can get the kind of support that we need in sober living, I think it's gonna be huge, and I also think the fact that you and Bobby are, what, 30 years sober now between you? More?
Yeah, between both of us, yeah, even over 40, I think. Because
Over 40.
yeah, we've both been well over 20, both of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you've been through the pitfalls and now I know you said you reverted. Did Bobby revert as well at some point when he was doing his journey?
That's a good question. I don't know if he
I'm
had
just
like a
curious.
yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
not
even my reversion, like, I still had my smoking pot and alcohol was okay, but at least
yeah.
I wasn't using methamphetamines.
Yeah.
But since I did rehab, I've never reverted, and same with Bobby, I do know since doing the program, neither one of us have reverted.
Right. That's awesome. And I do make the point, because sometimes we talk to people and they, smoke a little dope or they're still doing a little bit of Suboxone or whatever. And I,
Mhm.
I don't there's no judgment on that. But what we really would like is for you to be clean and sober. And
Right.
I think that an app of all things, and it never would have occurred to me until the opportunity came up and we talked to you guys, but I think that having an app on your phone that directs you through daily activities and also gets you to look at each day as to, how it went and what the successes were and what are the things you need to change and what are the places you need to avoid. I just think I think it's huge. And I applaud you both for putting the work into it and putting it there for people because I think it's gonna be successful.
Yeah, me too. I really do. It's like the very forward thinking that a person really needs. Like what are your goals in life? What are you doing? And then how are you going to achieve those? And you have our help basically through the whole journey.
Exactly, and y'all are still doing interventions, right?
Yep, still doing interventions. We're actually moving into also doing coaching in a sense of sober coaching, looking and it's more still that forward thinking approach.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I think that's awesome, and so once again, for anybody listening, you go to studio.com, and you do have to have an iPhone right now. They're gonna do it for Android, but not yet, and it's sober
Support.
sober support. Okay,
Sober support.
so look for sober support and look for Bobby and Amy Newman because their names are also on the app, and I think that that's gonna be huge. Amy, if you just had, like, I don't know, one word of wisdom for people who are in recovery, what would you say to them?
Just that you're strong, that you can do it. You don't listen to the fact that you have to revert. It doesn't have to happen. Yeah.
Good. I like that because
Yeah.
we hear that, not reversion, what's the other word for that? Anyway, relapse is part of, recovery, and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. It can be somebody might revert, but it's not the goal. It's not the goal to, well, I messed up. It's like you actually can stay strong and choose your choices every single day. And that's what's important.
Exactly, and that's what the app is gonna help you do. Amy, thank you so much for talking to us today. We appreciate you, and, we wanna talk to Bobby too and get his take on the app because 'cause we're really excited about it and think that it's a real opportunity and, truly a gift for people who are in recovery.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we thank you guys too. We really, really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. Once again, this podcast, let's see, we should be up on the 20th. The app is live. You have to have an iPhone for now. It will be available on Android phones, but for now, it's on an iPhone. Go to studio.com and look for the app called Sober Support. And if you can't find it that way, look for Bobby and Amy Newman and tell us what you think. We'll be back next week with another interview.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.